Welcome to Impact News. I am Carol Angela Davis, and I thank you so much for joining me on this week's edition of your newscast. Okay, let's start with resilience, people. That's right, folks. Black women, oh yes, are becoming the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs. A lot of it driven by the absolute need to make ends meet. We've all felt it, okay? The National Women's Law Center, well, it says Black women felt the brunt of the economic crisis of 2020 and 2021. Their unemployment rate reached 16.6% at the peak of the pandemic, and it remained in the double digits for 6 months. 19% of women said they lost or quit their job during the pandemic, while 31% said the company they worked for reduced their hours as a result of COVID-19. So what do, folks? We start a business. That's right. According to the State of Women-Owned Businesses report that's done by American Express, companies owned by women of color soared to 43% between 2014 and 2019, while Black women-led businesses climbed to an astonishing rate of 50%, folks. And now some big financial institutions are taking notice. We're talking JP Morgan. We're talking MasterCard. They're pledging billions to help Black women and other entrepreneurs of color access the capital they need so they can scale those businesses up. Chase announced $30 billion over the next 5 years to advance racial equity and provide economic opportunity to underserved communities. Similarly, MasterCard pledged $500 million to help close the wealth gap as well as the opportunity gap. I'm talking about the racial wealth gap because that's the biggest gap out there for Black communities and businesses across America. So ladies, keep it going. We know we are the backbones of our family in many cases, and we have to do whatever we have to do to take care of them. And that's why everybody you know and everybody I know has a business. Stay with me. Welcome to Impact News. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Impact News. We're going to start, folks, with your headlines from all around the neighborhood and, of course, around the world. Just a few of the stories that we have on tap for you in this week's show. Kanye, or Ye, can't sell those White Lives Matter t-shirts. We'll tell you why. Plus, the United Nations says the past 8 years were the hottest on record. We'll tell you where some of the hot spots are. Plus, a triple threat of cholera, malnutrition, and violence in this Caribbean nation, and a Broadway theater named after an African-American legend. Plus more stories. Stay with me. From Oakland, California, folks, that's where we begin with your stories, where racists wrote Black Lives Don't Matter, rather. We know they matter. They wrote Black Lives Don't Matter, kill them all on the wall inside a school. Folks, it happened over there at Thornhill Elementary School. That message written on the walls inside the girls' bathroom. The district removed the graffiti, called the police, but some say racism in school is a problem all across the entire Oakland, California Unified School District. Apparently, parents very concerned about the safety of their children in light of the rise in white nationalist shootings. All right, let's move on. Kanye, or Ye as he calls himself, can't sell White Lives Matter t-shirts. Oh, well, okay. And that's because two Black guys own the trademark. Talk about forward thinking, okay? They are two Black radio hosts in Arizona, and their names are Ramses Ja and Quentin Ward. They are hosts of the weekly racial justice radio show called A Civic Cipher. They say they took ownership of the trademark for the phrase White Lives Matter because they said it was clear that someone stood to gain significant profit from it. They add that they also consider owning the trademark a responsibility that includes making sure it does not fall into the wrong hands. All right, now, let's look at the climate, where there is trouble. Here in the United States, we got trouble in Louisiana, where salt water is infiltrated a Louisiana parish's drinking supply. Oh, my goodness. You know you can't drink salt water. You'll kill you. You got to drink water. It's all due to the drought that is slowing the Mississippi River, and it could put residents with health issues at risk. In fact, the situation playing out in Plaquemines Parish, which is a community of 3,000 south of New Orleans, that water from the nearby Gulf pouring into the region's water system. Health officials telling residents with high blood pressure and heart health issues do not drink the water. Apparently, the water is safe for those who don't suffer from health issues. I don't know about that. And it's safe for bathing. Okay, I'll give you that. Local firehouses are distributing cases of bottled water to those who need them. All right, also in the United States, the current mega drought in southwestern North America is so bad that southwestern United States, here in the United States, the southwestern part of the United States is now drier than it has been, are you ready for this, in more than 1,000 years, folks. 1,000 years, that's where we are. And U.S. streams are also drying up. In fact, the United Nations says the past 8 years were the highest 8 years ever recorded, and the world is now deep into the climate crisis. The sea level is now rising twice as fast as it did 30 years ago, and the oceans are hotter than ever. And folks, more climate issues as glaciers in Yosemite and Africa are predicted to disappear by 2050. That's the word from the United Nations. It's warning that this is what will happen even if global warming is limited to just that 1.5 degrees Celsius or 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit target, which now they say seems also unlikely. We're going to exceed that. Oh my goodness. The almost 19,000 glaciers, folks, guess what? They're losing more than 60 billion tons of ice a year. That amounts to the annual water consumption of Spain and France combined. Yes, ma'am, okay? These Yosemite and Africa glacier melts account for about 5% of the global sea level rise. Glaciers are reportedly retreating at an accelerated rate worldwide, causing flooding and costing thousands of lives, folks. In Switzerland alone, glaciers lost a record 6% of their volume just this year. And one of the coldest places on earth, are you ready for this, is on fire. Yes, yes. And it's getting worse. It's a small town in Siberia. Now, you know what the Russians do to people. When they get sick of them, they banish them to Siberia because it's so cold. Okay, well, not anymore. Siberia it's in the typically very frigid far eastern part of Russia, but now the temperatures there have set a new world record. The temperature exceeded 38 degrees Celsius, which is, drum roll please, are you ready for this? 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Yes, for the first time ever in the region above the Arctic Circle. All right, so we got climate issues, so, be advised to do your part. Otherwise, we're all going down for the count. We all know that. All right, let's move on. New laws in New York, folks, require companies to disclose pay ranges for job postings, and it's especially important, so you can understand if you're overpaid. Certain group doesn't have that problem, or underpaid, which is more like it, compared to a colleague. Women are still making just over 80 cents on the dollar compared to men. Black women earning only roughly 65 cents. Latina and indigenous American women making roughly 55 cents compared to women. And those numbers have barely budged in the last 10 years. See, all they do is talk. All they do is they're doing anything about it. Wrong people in charge, okay? LGBTQ workers and other marginalized workers, you should know they're getting paid less as well, folks. And trans people, they earn roughly a third less than their cisgender counterparts. Folks, New York joins Colorado, Washington State, and Rhode Island, all of which require some form of salary transparency. And we're glad to have that transparency. We get things right. All right, let's go on. Let's look at the diaspora. We're going to go to Haiti, where there is a triple threat, folks, of cholera, malnutrition, and violence, putting young lives at risk. And that does come to us from the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child. Gangs have been blocking access to the main fuel terminal in the capital there, Port-au-Prince. This has affected delivery of health care and other critical services at a time, folks, when Haiti is confronting a growing cholera epidemic. And many of the poorest Haitian families, guess what? Not only do they not have safe drinking water, folks, they don't have any soap so they can wash their hands. They don't have any basic sanitation, and that all increases the cholera risk. Additionally, hospitals there in Haiti are only able to offer limited services due to fuel shortages and insecurity. All right, we're going to hop back to New York, where Lena Horne is now the first Black woman to have a Broadway theater named in her honor, folks. It's the former Brooks Atkinson Theater. It's over there on West 47th Street there in New York City. It has officially been renamed the Lena Horne Theater. At the height of her career, we want you to know who Lena Horne was in case you don't know. She was the highest paid Black entertainer, folks. She was born in 1917 in Brooklyn. She died in 2010 at the age of 92. She was the daughter of a banker and an actor. She dropped out of school at the age of 16 to perform at the famed Cotton Club. And she went on to pursue a career in the spotlight. She won several awards, including 2 Grammys in 1982 and 1996, along with a Lifetime Achievement Award in 1989. Well, we're happy to hear that news, but don't go away. You know I'm coming back. I got your slave word. I got missing. I got to ask Dr. K with your health issues. You got to be on your health all the time. Dr. Inyang Elbaum-Harshup's going to bring you your international report. We have to know what's going on around the world. And of course, I've got your financial news. Stay with me. It is time for the slave word of the week so you can level up that vocab. Folks, the slave word this week is puissant. I don't know if that's one you've heard of. It's spelled Puissant, puissant. That's an adjective, meaning, of course, that it modifies or describes that noun. Its origin is from the Latin in the 15th century, and the definition of puissant is powerful, having political authority. Let's use it in a sentence. Okay. My grandfather thought he ruled the house, but we all knew Grandma was the most puissant. Also today, another sentence. President Biden demonstrated his puissant ability by signing into law several bills, that make Americans' lives better and stronger. Puissant, that's your slave word of the week, and we hope you use it all week and level up that vocab. You know what it means, powerful, having political authority. Stay with me.
Anyone who thinks that slavery ended in the 1860s with the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation are grievously wrong.
If we caught a bird, we ate through the feathers and ate the bird. We didn't have nothing to cook on. We didn't have no stove.
You know who you are and who we are.
We're still on that big plantation.
She was bonded to them until they died. She was their slave.
They said, well, we're going to be killed tonight.
Could that same white dude keep terrorists there, or Russian spies, or the KGB, and the government wouldn't know it? No.
They thought I was beat so bad that I couldn't do nothing, but I did.
Are you? This is our segment on missing, where we look for African American girls who've gone missing, and with your help, we're also going to find them. Chicago police say Tianda Slater was 15 years old when she was reported missing from the 1000 block of North Milwaukee Avenue in the Noble Square neighborhood. Slater is 5 feet 4 inches tall, weighs 115 pounds, and has brown hair. She was last seen wearing a black windbreaker, light blue ripped jeans, and black gym shoes. Please call 1-800-THE-LOST, 800-843-5678 with any information about the case of Tianda Slater. Won't you help us look for our missing African American girls? Please, if you have any information on any of the girls that we feature, please let us know. Welcome to the International Report with Dr. Inyang Elbaum-Harshup. This week, Eni interviewed Mrs. Nigeria in America, who she caught up with in Dallas. Here's that interview.
Can you tell me a little bit about how your year has been as the Queen and the Woman of Achievement?
Oh my goodness, it has been so amazing. I've met a lot of amazing people, great people, and I am literally meeting you, amazing personality, and it has really been great. I've met a lot of children, which is my core love. I always love to empower children to be a better version of themselves.
And in empowering them, what exactly do you do to empower them?
I teach them, I help them not just to only be book smart, but also street smart.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
And street smart involves?
Teaching them to work with their hands and become entrepreneurs.
Excellent. We know that there's a youth bulge in Africa, and we know that the governments cannot make enough jobs for the children. So this entrepreneurial skills you're teaching them is of paramount importance.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
And what areas are they going into? Are they going into dressmaking, dress designing? What sort of areas are they interested in?
For me, I love crafts, and because I am a teacher, I love crafts. So I teach children how to make, it can be African fabric notebooks, it can be African fabric jewelry, earrings, necklaces, anything African that the children can play with or make something out of it. Now, it's not only African fabrics, you can use other kinds of fabrics, but I want to empower children to use what they have to build their wealth.
That is fantastic.
Oh, I am glad and proud to represent Nigeria, because Nigeria is a land that has so much resources, both human and natural resources. I want to give that out to the world. And that is why I stand here this evening to give and tell the world about what I do to empower children to be a better version of themselves.
Thank you, Eni, and she'll be back next week with more information of what's going on all around the world. Stay with me. Well, folks, this is your financial news, and I want you to know that Sean Diddy Combs is making waves, people. Sean Diddy Combs is about to launch the largest Black-owned cannabis company. That's right. He's buying assets in 3 states from Columbia Care and Cresco Labs, forming the country's largest Black-owned cannabis company. It is a $185 million transaction. Yes, ma'am. Under the deal, a new firm controlled by Combs will acquire 9 cannabis retail stores and 3 production facilities in New York, Illinois, and Massachusetts. Now, folks, that's big news. It shouldn't be, considering how many of us have gone to prison for the weed, but it is. Because in the cannabis industry, 81% of the businesses are white-owned. Okay. The barriers to entering the legal market followed decades of marijuana prohibition that saw Black and brown people disproportionately arrested and jailed for cannabis-related offenses. Folks, we all know that because they're all in our families. The deal of Sean P. Diddy Combs is awaiting regulatory approval. All right, moving on. Guess which zip codes have the fastest growing renter populations in the U.S.? Even though the cost of rent is up in many cities, the percentage of renters is still outpacing that of homeowners in these zip codes. And first of all, y'all need to be a homeowner. Stop renting. There's a lot of programs out there. We talk about them on the show. Own. All right, but let's go on with the renting. There are 8 zip codes that grew their renter populations by more than 80% in the past decade, and they are all located in or near downtowns. They're located in San Antonio, Miami, Minneapolis, Columbus, and Chicago. The last 10 years saw a whopping 237.7% increase in the number of renters in San Antonio's 78215 zip, followed by the 33132 in Miami, followed by the 55415 in Minneapolis. Folks, buy. Freeze your housing costs. Buy. All right, let's move on. Private payrolls, you should know, rose by 239,000 in October, while wages increased 7.7%, most of the gains coming from the leisure and hospitality industry, which added 210 positions, while wages rose 11.2% for this sector. The industry includes hotels, its restaurants, its bars, and related businesses. And you should know that by business size, companies with between 50 and 249 employees had virtually all of the gains, adding the jobs. So we're happy to hear that. That's your financial news. Stay with me. I still got more for you.
I'm just sick and tired of us not spending time together lately.
I know, baby. I know. I'm sorry I ain't been spending time with you. I just been working on this big deal. It's gonna bring a lot more money to the household for it.
What you doing here, boss?
Yeah, just checking to see if you still got it.
You take this work. You partner. I don't want it back.
I've seen the movies, man. I know how this goes.
You see the movie, huh? Did you see Goodfellas? New Jack City?
Everything I do is for you. Like, I just need a little bit more time, man. Fine bullshit. Like I said, he's gonna call any second.
Okay, let me ask you this. Why don't you take a look at this video? Guess what? It's starring you.
We're back at you, closing out the show with Ask Dr. K, as we always do, because we always want to be focused on your health and well-being. Welcome, Dr. K.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Still October, and we are still talking about breast cancer as it affects women of the African diaspora. So today, we're going to talk about the BRCA gene. What if you have been found to have the BRCA, BRCA breast cancer gene? Now, this is the most common gene, but they know that there are 15 separate genes in our genome that can lead to the diagnosis of breast cancer, this being the most prominent. As we live our lives and talk about prevention, our goal, even when we inherit the BRCA gene, is to not allow the gene to express itself, because we can have many different genes, but not every gene gets expressed or turned on. So how do we try not to turn on the BRCA gene? Well, one of the things is the environment. And that's the whole environmental justice movement, is that some of the toxins in the environment can activate certain genes. And then we know, we call it things like Cancer Alley, but really what it is, it's an environmental pollutant turning on a gene. The other thing that can turn on the BRCA gene is a meat-based diet, inflammatory diet, chemicals that are in it, inflammation that are in it, and therefore the most healthy way to try to hold this gene at bay is maintaining a normal weight, staying away from anything that is based on animals. That includes dairy and meat, and eating a whole foods plant-based diet. This is an anti-inflammatory diet, and it may hold off recurrence of breast cancer in those people that have the BRCA gene, and it may hold off the initial expression of the BRCA gene, getting regular exercise. So even though we have this in our genome potentially, let's see if behavioral and food and lifestyle factors can cause it to not be expressed.
Well, you have to do something. I mean, if the gene is sitting there, you know you've got it. It would seem to me, and people love meat, but you know, we did the story on the news this week that says that they're telling the hunters in Michigan that are killing the deer, don't eat the meat because it's full of chemicals.
Exactly. And the thing is, you know, if we know, but suppose we don't even know that some of our everyday choices could potentially be turning on this gene, or perhaps we don't even know that we have the gene.
Well, one thing's for certain, we know corporate America, and we know corporate America isn't doing that much to keep us disease free, because it's all about the money. Thank you so much, Dr. K. And next week is our last week on breast cancer. You should have learned a lot. I know I did. Thank you so much, Dr. K.
Thanks for having me. Have a great week. Thank you.
Thank you. And from all of us here at Impact News, we'll see you next week for another great week of important information. I'm Carol Angela Davis.